All right, good morning. It's 7:05 on Sunday, the 29th of August, 2021. I am Texas Storm Chasers Baldy in Chief David Reimer. We are tracking a historic day, unfortunately, in the world of tropical mischief in the Gulf of Mexico. Major Hurricane Ida is now on the brink of becoming a major Category 5 hurricane. Maximum sustained winds are now 150 to 155 miles per hour, and the hurricane still appears to be intensifying. At 7 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the eye of Major Hurricane Ida is located 50 miles southwest of the mouth of the Mississippi River, or 100 miles southeast of Huma. That is Hotel Oscar Uniform Mike Alpha, Louisiana, moving northwest at 15 miles per hour. The minimum central pressure has continued to drop. It is now down to 933 millibars, or 27.55 inches of mercury. What's there to say? Unfortunately, what you're looking at here is something that will live in the minds of those who live on the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi. Could ring the same bell as Katrina, Laura, Michael, Harvey, Ike, Camille. This storm is one that has unfortunately overperformed. And that's saying something because we forecasted rapid intensification. We forecasted this storm to become a Category 4 hurricane. We did not expect it to make a run at Category 5. It's not good. So, couple notes in terms of our folks who are on the ground in southeast Louisiana and chasing. I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in here. Let's see if I can, right there, LaRose, Louisiana. Stephen Jones, Alex Bartholomew, Ben McCone. That was their intercept location. They scouted out much of Saturday. They arrived Saturday morning. They scouted out this area all the way up to Interstate 10. They found a safe spot in LaRose, east of Houma, southwest of New Orleans. That was for a high-end Cat 3, low-end Cat 4. Well, things have obviously changed. We're looking at, for all intents and purposes, a borderline Cat 5. Given that, they have elected to abandon their position and are retreating to Plan B, which is a bit further inland. They'll have their live chase stream up here in a bit, but for the moment they're repositioning to the north. Some very distressing reports coming from them out of LaRose. This is a community that apparently is sticks and tin, to describe the building codes or the generalized buildings. A lot of wood with tin roofs. Unfortunately, and what's most distressing about this situation is they report that it doesn't look like many folks left town. Hotels or motels in town are packed, and there's a lot of people still in town. And to describe their words, that town is not survivable in a high-end Cat 4 or Cat 5 hurricane. All that wood, all that tin will become lethal when it goes airborne. So they've elected to abandon town. I know several other chasers that were planning on being there to intercept this storm in LaRose have also retreated further inland, giving the non-survivability of being in town. And you might be asking, David, why? You're saying that, but there's a lot of people still in that town. Yeah, unfortunately, based off their reports, and I'm going to be blunt, I'm going to be direct, they're expecting, well, look, they're thinking people are going to die there. That's the best way I can put it. They didn't leave, and if this eye wall hits that town directly, it is of their opinion that town is not survivable given the structures they found. They looked for a sturdy enough structure to survive a high-end Cat 4, Cat 5. They couldn't find one, so that's why they're retreating to Plan B. And that doesn't even take into account the storm surge. So, and keep in mind, many of these areas are outside the levee protection system. We've got storm surge running up into southeast Louisiana, beach cameras, etc. Water is just flowing inland now. The hurricane itself is probably 4 to 5 hours away from making landfall in southeast Louisiana. Keep in mind these areas south of New Orleans, by the time the eye wall arrives, will be under 10 to 15 feet of water. So it's going to take time for the hurricane to weaken, and this is generally marshland to begin with. And given the fact it's going to be under 10 to 15 feet of water, the hurricane's probably not going to weaken all that quickly for the hour or two after it moves onshore. Based on the current trajectory of the hurricane, if it doesn't start moving a little more west soon, the city of New Orleans is going to be in a world of hurt in terms of the eastern eye wall moving over the city and major hurricane winds over 115 miles per hour, decimating the power grid. Storm surge now could be up to 15, maybe even 20 feet across portions of southeast Louisiana. That is going to stress the hurricane and flood protection systems around New Orleans. This is easily the biggest test they have faced since Katrina. And we know they rebuilt the whole system. They spent a lot of money on it. They're supposedly in good shape. But here's hoping it's enough. 15 to 20 inches of rain across eastern Louisiana into southern Mississippi over the next 2 days. So not only is New Orleans going to be facing an onslaught of wind and storm surge against the flood walls, the pumps in the city are going to have to pump out 10 to 20 inches of rainfall, which those of you who are familiar with Houston know it's not exactly the easiest to drain a heavily urbanized area, especially one that's below sea level, of floodwaters very quickly. And the heavy rainfall during this are likely to at least temporarily overwhelm some of those flood pumps. So there's probably going to be at least some fresh water flooding in the city of New Orleans. Wind damage-wise, if the eastern eye wall moves over the city of New Orleans this afternoon with winds over 120 miles an hour, we're likely to see some roofs off buildings. In Katrina, the city got about 100, 110 mile an hour wind gusts for a time. The western eye wall of Katrina, the eye wall passed east of the city of New Orleans and absolutely obliterated the Mississippi coastline. If not for the levee failures in New Orleans, the biggest story from Katrina would have been the 30-foot storm surge that absolutely annihilated the Mississippi coast. Biloxi, Gulfport. There's a book, and those of you who are really interested in it, I'll have to go find it later and I'll post it somewhere. There's a book about the Mississippi impacts from Katrina. It's a very good book. I mean, when you end up with casino barges inland, you've got problems. So anyway, I'm digressing. I apologize. It's been a very long night. I is about 50 miles now from moving onshore in southeast Louisiana. The hurricane itself, 150 to 155 miles per hour, attempting to make a run at Category 5. Category 5 intensity is 156 miles per hour and higher. To be honest, it doesn't really matter if this makes landfall at 150 or 160, Cat 4, Cat 5, the impacts are going to be the same, and it's going to be absolutely catastrophic where this eye wall comes onshore. Storm surge warnings all over southeast Louisiana, the Mississippi coastline, Alabama coastline. I'll go ahead and just read some of the peak surge values. I'm not going to put the graphic up, but I will read the list. All right, Sabine Pass, which is on the Texas-Louisiana border, east to Pecan Island, 1 to 3 feet above sea level possible. Pecan Island to Intercoastal City, 2 to 4 feet above normal tides. Intercoastal City, Louisiana to Burns Point, 4 to 6 feet above normal tides. Burns Point to Morgan City, 6 to 9 feet above normal tides and above ground level. Morgan City to Port, I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm sorry, Port Fortune. You know what? Here's what we're going to do. Foxtrot, Oscar, Uniform, Romeo, Charlie, Hotel, Oscar, November, 8 to 12 feet. That same city east to the mouth of the Mississippi River, the potential for 12 to 18-foot storm surge above ground level. From the mouth of the Mississippi to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, 8 to 12-foot storm surge. Lake Pontchartrain, which is north of New Orleans, floodwaters from the Gulf or surge are going to come into the lake 5 to 8 feet above normal, and that could push on the flood walls on the north side of New Orleans. 6 to 9 foot storm surge from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. All right, that is significant. That's significant in a typical hurricane. And this hurricane's making landfall well to the west. So again, major storm surge on the Mississippi coast. From Ocean Springs, Mississippi to the Alabama-Mississippi border, 4 to 7 feet above normal tide levels, above ground levels. From the Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border, including Mobile Bay and Mobile, Alabama, 3 to 5 feet above normal tide level, above ground level storm surge. From the Alabama-Florida border east through Pensacola Bay to the Walton, Okaloosa County line, 1 to 3 feet above ground level. And apparently it is pronounced Port Fourchon. So Port Fourchon, the potential for 12 to 16 foot storm surge. Again, I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, but you know what? Regulars of this whole ordeal know I mispronounce a lot of things. Some of you get mad, some of you don't. You know what? There's a borderline Cat 5 hurricane making landfall. You know what I meant. If you're upset, well, no cookies for you. Sorry. Okay, so again, landfall is expected in the next few hours, likely southwest of New Orleans near Houma. Then it'll start turning north by 1 a.m. tonight. The center of Hurricane Ida, likely near Interstate 10 and Interstate 55. Maybe just east of Baton Rouge, maybe close to Baton Rouge. Either way, hurricane force winds in Baton Rouge this evening, tonight, as the storm slowly turns to the north and northeast. Forward rate of speed will decrease substantially after this makes landfall later this morning into early this afternoon. By 1 p.m. Monday, the hurricane is likely to be near Natchez on the Louisiana-Mississippi border, passing west of Jackson, Mississippi tomorrow night. Until all of that happens, we're going to be talking about extremely heavy rainfall amounts. Let me go ahead. I'm going to pause all of this. I'm going to try and put on the forecast rain totals over the next 3 days. This may work. It may not. All right. Here's what we're going to do. You see the bright super-duper yellow? That's, I'm just going to say urine yellow. If you're really dehydrated, sorry, I know, but you know what? Oh, well. That is 15 to 20 inches of rain. That does include the city of New Orleans. You've got the darker shade of yellow across much of eastern Louisiana, 10 to 15 inches of rain. The dark orange that runs from near western Mississippi down I-55 through Macomb, east to Hattiesburg on I-59, over to Mobile on I-10. That is the potential for 7 to 12 inches of rain. And then you've got the oranges extending all the way up through most of Mississippi to Tupelo, Columbus, Mississippi. That is the potential for up to 5 to 7 inches of rain. Needless to say, freshwater flooding from excessive rainfall is going to cause widespread, significant flooding across much of Mississippi over the next 3 days. Western Alabama, same deal, tomorrow and Tuesday. Today, big time, nasty, catastrophic freshwater flooding across portions of eastern, southeastern Louisiana. Add on top of that, you're going to have a 10 to 15 foot storm surge pushing water inland from the Gulf of Mexico. That will not allow rivers to drain out water. It will make it more difficult for pumping stations to drain water out as well. So it's not a great deal. And that's not even to talk about the fact we're going to have hurricane force winds knocking down trees and, I mean, knocking power out. Honestly, pretty much, if you're east of, let's just say this. If you're east of Jackson, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, all the way to Franklin, Louisiana, New Iberia, there's a good chance you're not going to have power by the time today ends. And there's a good chance some of y'all aren't going to have power until we get to early October. Unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to go. Same thing for Mississippi. Unfortunately, we're going to have widespread power outages, and some of those are going to last a few weeks. Alright, as I try to remember how to turn the satellite back on because it's been a long night and me and buttons don't necessarily get along that well, I want to switch over to a product and I want to show you something. First light. As the sun comes up, you're looking at the visible satellite imagery. And now keep in mind, the sun's just coming up over the horizon to a point where it is bright enough to illuminate the visible spectrums on satellite imagery. Let me get the telestrator out. It's your stadium effect eye wall being lit up by the sun coming in from the east. You can see you've got thunderstorms on the eastern semicircle of Ida. Hold on. You see those storms? Those are all towering thunderstorms, shadows to the west of those as the sun comes up from the east. I'm going to loop this over the last 30 minutes. You're going to see nothing on this satellite imagery, and then you're going to just see everything bubble up. As the sun rises on a borderline Category 5 major hurricane, making landfall later this morning and this afternoon, comparable to the likes of Katrina, Camille, Ike, Harvey, Michael, Laura. Unfortunately, this will join the list of names that will be remembered on the Gulf Coast. Zoom on into the eye. This is 1-minute rapid scan imagery. As the sun rises, you can see very strong thunderstorms rapidly spinning around the eye of Hurricane Ida. Looks like we're starting to get a stadium effect where from the surface, the clouds kind of angle out like a bowl. That's the stadium effect. Very intense hurricanes. If our storm chasers do end up in the eye later on today, it is entirely possible they'll look up and see clear blue sky, much like they saw in Hurricane Michael in Panama City a few years ago. So here it is, sun rising on major Hurricane Ida. You can see those hot towers, as we call them, rotating around the eye wall. We'll switch over to a different product, see if that's doing any better. This is just something you never want to see, unfortunately. So close to a coastline. But here you go. Hurricane Ida. One that'll be in the history books. So, for those of you who might be Louisiana residents in eastern Louisiana, it's too late to evacuate. If you put yourself on the road now, I'm afraid you'd just be in more danger. The main issue of why folks were evacuated was to protect them from storm surge, the rising waters. That is the biggest killer threat. You can take cover in the wind aspect. Lowest, you treat it like a tornado. Lowest floor, center room, away from windows. You can't do that if you're trying to escape from floodwaters. So New Orleans, hopefully, God willing, you don't have any issues with mega flooding today. So you're going to have big-time issues with wind. I know they didn't issue a mandatory evacuation for areas inside the levee protection system. Once the eye wall approaches, you're going to have to treat this like a tornado. Get down as low as you can. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Same thing goes across eastern Louisiana this evening. Baton Rouge, you might have to do the same thing. Slidell, probably going to have to do that this afternoon. That's the main issue. We're going to be worried about trees falling down. We're going to be worried about trees knocking down power lines. Frankly, I would not be surprised if the whole power grid is decimated and they have to rebuild it almost completely from scratch. And that's going to take several weeks, but that's common with these major hurricanes. And unfortunately, that is exactly what this is. So, let me turn on wind gusts. These are going to be observed wind gusts. Now, let me be clear. You're not going to see 100+ mile an hour wind gusts on this product. Why? Because the anemometers, the objects that measure said winds, usually get taken out, either from power outages or debris, not long after they get to 100 miles an hour. So that's why you might not often see those kinds of winds. Well, let me get the buoys at least, see if those will turn on. You can see buoy, wow, look at that. When I say we don't usually get to see winds over 100 miles an hour because the instruments get destroyed, well, there you go. Now, I'm going to pull up my map real quick because I want to be able to tell you exactly what that is. And again, I'm just going to switch this back over to the visible satellite as the sun comes up. I know it's not going to be as clear as the infrared imagery, but still, as the sun comes up over the Louisiana coast, the eye wall becomes very clear very quickly. All right, it's going to be southwest of Pilot Town, Port Sulphur. Grand Isle is southeast of LaRousse, where this purple dot is. 47, that's Grand Isle. You see this buoy right offshore southwest of Pilot Town, measuring 121 mile per hour winds, sustained 105 mile an hour winds. And frankly, I don't know how that wind instrument has survived. I am legitimately impressed as the sun comes up on a very intense Hurricane Ida. All right, we'll switch back over to the super duper. You can see it at night mode, and there you go. So winds will increase rapidly over the next several hours across the southeast Louisiana coast. We're seeing storm surge quickly move inland across Grand Isle, right there, that 47 purple. Storm surge measured probably 10 feet by now, coming into Pilot Town, Venice. And eventually these strong hurricane force winds will make it into New Orleans, Houma, LaPlace, LaRose, where our storm chasers evacuated about 45 minutes ago. So with that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and quit yapping here and move my lips. Those of you watching our satellite stream, we've had a satellite stream ongoing for about a day now on YouTube. We'll switch back to the satellite. I would expect our storm chasers, Alex Bartholomew and Stephen Cooley, to start their storm chasing live stream soon. I believe they're near Houma or north of Houma now, west-southwest of New Orleans. We've got other chasers that are also in this general area. I believe they'll be streaming live later too. So again, our chasers are safe. They've got supplies to be able to remain self-sufficient for several days. And as I explained at the beginning of this stream, they have more than one safe place picked out. And they've had to enact their backup plan due to the rapidly increasing and overachieving intensity of Hurricane Ida. You can keep an eye on the storm using our radar, TexasStormChasers.com/radar. The eye wall, all that is extremely visible on the radar. And we'll have a satellite live stream going on YouTube. Just search for Texas Storm Chasers or go look for it on our website, TexasStormChasers.com. We'll be back as needed, but hopefully our live streaming storm chasers will be able to take over the coverage here shortly. I'm David Reimer with the Texas Storm Chasers. Keep Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama in your prayers today and tonight. They're going to need it.